I remember the day my mother left me, her disabled daughter, at the hospital. 20 years later, she decided to come back, but was devastated when she saw my condition. In the busy city hospital, the air was filled with the constant buzz of conversations and the echoes of hurried footsteps. I could feel my mother, Elizabeth's hand gripping mine tightly. The fluorescent lights above us flickered endlessly, casting shadows on our tense faces. "You need to be very brave now, Amelia," she began. Her anxious eyes scanned the crowded hallway, making sure no one was paying us too much attention. She told me she had something very important to take care of. Unfortunately, she couldn't take me with her this time. But she promised she'd come back for me. She asked me to wait there for just a little while, assuring me it would be okay. Her voice trembled as she spoke, a clear sign of her inner conflict. Her whispers, full of uncertain promises, were meant only for my ears. I sat in my wheelchair, looking up at her with big, trusting eyes.
"I can be brave, Mommy. You'll come back soon, right? Do you really promise?"
I asked. My young voice held a certainty that was mixed with just a hint of doubt. It was a fragile hope that my mother's words were true. She crouched down and looked into my eyes. She forced a smile, trying to hide her uncertainty. "I promise, my dear child. Just stay here and be strong for a little while. It won't take long, I swear," she said. The words were spoken with a conviction she desperately wanted to feel. Each word added weight to her already burdened heart. Leaving me in the colorful waiting room, she cast one last anguished glance back. She saw me being approached by Nurse Lindsay, who had kind eyes and a comforting voice. Elizabeth walked away, each step painful, echoing the hurt and sacrifice this decision was bringing her. Nurse Lindsay noticed me sitting alone, looking a bit lost, and approached with a warm smile. Her eyes showed a familiar worry, but she maintained a welcoming tone as she asked,
"Hello, young lady. Where's your mother?"
I remember how Nurse Lindsay tried to ease my visible tension. I answered with excitement that betrayed my growing anxiety. I told her that my mom said she'd be right back, that she just had something urgent to do. I explained that I was supposed to wait here. My innocence was mixed with a wavering hope that my mother's words would remain true. Hours passed, and the waiting room gradually emptied. Nurse Lindsay approached me again, her shift nearly over. She called me dear child, and told me she had to leave, but assured me I'd be safe here. She reminded me to stay with my toys and not to leave the hospital alone or talk to strangers. Her voice tried to stay bright, but there was an undeniable shadow of worry. I replied, "Okay," my small voice wondering if maybe my mom had gotten lost. I thought that perhaps she didn't even know it was time to come back. My childish logic was trying to find a reasonable explanation for her prolonged absence. Nurse Lindsay crouched down to look me in the eyes. She explained that sometimes moms have a lot of things to figure out, and it might take a little longer than expected. But she assured me that there were many people here who cared about me. She told me I wasn't alone and that everything would be okay. Her words were comforting, but my heart still yearned for the person I loved most. As Lindsay left, I couldn't help but stare at the door, grateful for my new guardian's kindness, but unable to look away. With each step, each sound, I kept waiting for my mother. Night fell over the city, and the hospital grew quiet, but my heart remained restless. In the darkness of uncertainty, a small flame of hope still flickered within me. At the city hospital, Nurse Lindsay had become a constant presence by my side since my mother had promised to return after leaving me in the waiting room. As days passed, her absence began to weigh heavily on both the staff and me, but hope that she would return still lingered in the air. Lindsay, seeing me playing alone with the few toys I had, decided it was important to monitor my health and well-being continuously. She suggested we do some exercises together, trying to combine care with interaction. I remember smiling, excited by the attention. I told her I loved it and that I had drawn a picture of us two in the park. When she asked if I wanted to show her, I eagerly agreed. She then suggested checking on my legs afterwards, and I agreed, saying my mom would be happy to know she was taking care of me. Lindsay gently incorporated physical therapy into our daily routine, hoping to maintain my mobility and prevent muscle atrophy. As we exercised together, I noticed how carefully she watched my movements, always alert for any signs of discomfort or difficulty. She had a knack for making our sessions feel more like playtime between friends than treatment. "You're doing so well, Amelia," she would say, praising even the smallest progress. "Look, you can lift your leg a little higher today." I remember smiling shyly and saying, "Mom will be proud when she comes back and sees how strong I've gotten." Then I asked, with a mix of hope and anxiety in my voice, "Do you think she'll be back soon, Nurse Lindsay?" That question always hung in the air between us, a constant reminder of my uncertain situation. Lindsay, battling her own doubts and the reality of abandonment she'd seen too often, chose to offer me the only thing she could: hope. She told me she thought my mom would be back, that she must have a good reason for being late. But in the meantime, she suggested we have fun and learn new things every day. Our conversations gently shifted from light exercises to activities that stimulated both my mind and body. Lindsay would tell me that every day I spent with her, I was teaching her something new. As she helped me put together a puzzle, she said my strength and courage were inspiring and made everyone want to be better. I looked at the nurse with admiring eyes. I could sense the pain in her eyes, even as she tried to comfort me. Lindsay suggested we try something different, like drawing exercises to strengthen my arms. She made it sound so fun, I couldn't help but feel excited. As days turned into weeks, Lindsay and I grew closer. We established a routine that included physical therapy, playtime, and learning sessions. I felt myself growing stronger, not just in body but in spirit too. My laughter began to echo through the hospital corridors, bringing hope and joy even in the most difficult situations. I'll never forget the day Lindsay took me to the hospital's small garden on a particularly sunny afternoon. It was such a welcome change of scenery. As she carefully pushed my wheelchair along the paved path, Lindsay pointed out how beautiful the sun was. She told me that the daily sunshine was a reminder that no matter how dark the night, the sun always comes back to warm us. I felt the warmth on my face and couldn't help but smile broadly. I said it was like the sun was telling us not to give up, and I saw Lindsay's eyes light up at my observation. She agreed, saying that's why we never give up, we keep working together and growing together. That afternoon passed in a blur of laughter and conversation, and when we returned inside, I felt invigorated, ready to face new challenges. As days turned into weeks, I began to feel the weight of my mother's absence more acutely. Lindsay noticed the subtle changes in my behavior. I found myself staring out the window more often, watching the street activity with a quietness that worried her. One particularly quiet afternoon, Lindsay sat next to me with a new picture book to read together. She said she'd found a book I might like, about a brave princess facing big challenges. I looked at the book, a faint smile on my lips, but tears quickly welled up in my eyes. With a trembling voice, I asked Lindsay if she really thought my mom would come back. I worried that after so much time, maybe my mom didn't know where to find me anymore. Lindsay's heart seemed to break a little at my words. She must have realized I was beginning to understand the reality of my situation. She called me her sweet Amelia, and assured me that my mom knew this was the best place for me right now. She said everyone here was taking very good care of me, and no matter what happened, I had a big family in this hospital who loved me very much. I snuggled closer to Lindsay, seeking comfort in her presence, feeling both scared and hopeful about what the future might hold. I remember that day when I told Nurse Lindsay how much I missed my mom and my old life. My heart felt like it was being pulled in two directions, longing for the past, but also feeling love for Lindsay and everyone at the hospital. I asked her if I could be like the princess in the book, brave even when things were tough. Lindsay's words were like a warm hug, telling me I was already so brave and that everyone saw it every day. She said I had many adventures waiting for me, just like the princess. As she opened the book and started reading, her gentle voice filled the room, mixing with the lengthening afternoon shadows. Over the next few weeks, I became more involved in hospital activities, joining group therapy, painting, and music sessions. I was building bonds with other kids and staff, creating a new family within my situation. Still, at the end of each day, I'd look towards the door, a quiet reminder of my lingering hope. On one of my lonelier days at the hospital, I called Lindsay over to talk. She put her work aside for a moment and came to sit with me, sensing my mix of loneliness and curiosity. I looked at her, hesitating before I asked if I could still be someone important, even if my mom didn't come back. Lindsay's response was full of love and encouragement. She told me I had endless potential and that my dreams and wishes were valid and achievable, regardless of anyone else's presence or absence. I told her I wanted to make a difference, just like she did. I said that maybe someday, I could help others and bring a little light to the darkness. Lindsay's proud smile warmed my heart as she assured me I was already doing that. She said everyone in the hospital was touched by my courage and smile, that I inspired them all every day. A few days later, Lindsay suggested we do a special project together. She proposed creating something that would express my life and dreams, something that could inspire not just me, but everyone who passed through the hospital. Excited by the idea, I eagerly suggested we could make a mural with vibrant colors and stories of hope. Each piece would be part of my story and the story of everyone who struggled and dreamed. As we worked on the mural, I found myself opening up more. I told Lindsay how I felt I was leaving my mark on the world with every color I chose and every line I drew. It was showing that even something small could become something big. Lindsay agreed, telling me I was showing everyone that strength comes from the heart, not size, and that my heart was enormous. When we finished the mural, I stood back and looked at our work, marveling at how something so beautiful could come from such a difficult time. Lindsay put her arm around me and agreed, saying I had learned one of life's most valuable lessons. She reminded me that no matter what the future held, I would never be alone. As time passed in the city hospital, I found myself entering my early teens, dreaming bigger and reaching higher. As I grew older, my resilient and optimistic spirit only grew stronger, and my interests began to crystallize into concrete aspirations for the future. Lindsay, who was always by my side, witnessed the blossoming of this extraordinary young woman I was becoming. One quiet afternoon, as Lindsay and I were putting together another puzzle in the activity room, I shared my thoughts out loud. I told her I'd been thinking a lot about what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wanted to be someone important, someone famous, someone who could make a difference in the world. Lindsay, curious and encouraging as always, asked me what kind of profession I was considering. I told her I'd thought about becoming a doctor to heal people, or a scientist to discover new things. I even mentioned considering becoming an astronaut to explore space. My eyes lit up with each new idea I shared. Lindsay smiled, praising my ambition. Then she suggested something I hadn't considered before. She asked if I'd ever thought about something that included my passion for movement, my resilience, and my determination. She proposed the idea of sports, even suggesting I could become a Paralympic athlete. I was surprised by her suggestion and paused. The thought of sports had never crossed my mind before. But I realized I loved being active, and I felt free when I was moving. I asked Lindsay if she really thought I could become an athlete. Her response was full of confidence in me. She reminded me that I had already shown so much strength and will to overcome challenges. She explained that sports could be a wonderful way to express that. As a Paralympic athlete, she said, I could inspire many people by showing that limits are just challenges to be overcome. Her words planted a new seed of dreams in my heart. Over the next few days, I immersed myself in researching Paralympic sports. I devoured stories of athletes who had overcome incredible odds, each tale igniting a flame of possibility within me. I asked Lindsay if she thought I could be like them, competing, winning medals, and traveling the world. Her response was more than just belief, it was certainty. She told me I had an indomitable spirit, and she would be there to cheer me on every step of the way, through every race and every victory. Motivated by Lindsay's encouragement, I began participating in a training program tailored to my needs and goals within the hospital. Each training session, each small improvement, brought me closer to my dream of becoming an athlete. As I practiced adaptive wheelchair racing in the hospital garden, I voiced my thoughts aloud. I wanted to use my story, my life, to show people all over the world that anything can be overcome. I wanted to prove that even in the darkest moments, we can find strength within ourselves. Lindsay's face showed a mix of pride and admiration. She told me my story was already inspiring, and she had no doubt I would accomplish great things. She said my journey was just beginning, and she couldn't wait to see where it would take me. As I became more dedicated to sports, my bond with Lindsay grew even stronger. I knew she saw me not just as a patient, but as a daughter of her heart. One sunny afternoon, as I was practicing in the hospital garden, Lindsay called me over to sit with her in the shade. She began carefully, telling me she'd been thinking a lot about us, about how I'd grown and become this amazing young person. I looked at her, curiosity written all over my face, and asked her what was wrong, noting how serious she looked. Lindsay sighed, her voice a mix of nervousness and excitement. She told me that over these years, I had become a very important part of her life. I remember that moment as if it were yesterday, my heart pounding in my chest as Lindsay spoke those life-changing words. She asked me how I'd feel about her adopting me, about us becoming a family officially. The idea of leaving the hospital and living with her hit me like a tidal wave of emotion. I blinked in surprise, feeling a surge of joy and happiness wash over me. "You want to adopt me?" I whispered, my voice barely audible, as if speaking too loudly might break this beautiful dream. Lindsay's eyes were shining with tears of hope as she confirmed it. She told me she loved me like her own daughter and wanted to give me a home, a place I could always return to. Without thinking, I threw myself into her arms, hugging her tightly as tears flowed freely down my face. I told her nothing would make me happier, that I'd always dreamed of having a family. I couldn't imagine anyone more suited to be my mother than her. In the days that followed, Lindsay began the adoption process. I watched her fill out paperwork, go to interviews, and navigate the legal procedures with determination. Meanwhile, I was glowing with the idea of having a family. It gave me a sense of joy and security I'd never known before. One night, as we were planning the decoration for my room in our new home, Lindsay told me this would be an adventure for both of us. She said we'd have to learn a lot about being a family together. I was so excited. I promised her I'd be the best daughter I could be. My voice was filled with excitement for the life waiting for us. As weeks passed, the adoption process proved more complex than we'd anticipated. We started to worry as time dragged on. Lindsay comforted me, saying we needed to stay strong and keep believing everything would work out. She believed there was a reason for all of this. I smiled and told her if she believed, I believed too. I couldn't wait for us to become a wonderful family, just her and me. But then, we faced our first big obstacle. The adoption process was suddenly halted by one person. My father. A man who had never been present in my life was now opposing the adoption. Jonathan, my biological father, was a businessman known for his strictness and coldness.